Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I have the pleasure of going live with Sarah Ford Bishop, and we're going to be talking to her a little bit about her contest prep, her show day, and then also talk about a little bit about her injury and kind of that whole circumstance and how she's been navigating post-show with an injury that has essentially impacted her ability to train like a bodybuilder and do all the things that she loves to do, and kind of like the mindset shift that she's had to do kind of throughout this entire process. And so I'm going to let Sarah in and we will get this party started. Sometimes Instagram likes to be a clown. And I'm going to just dunk my tea. So we'll see. I'll accept it again. Hey, there she is. How you doing, Sarah?
Hello. I am good. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Are you enjoying kind of like the cooler fall weather that Florida's offering you?
Yeah, it's down to 60 something in the mornings, but it's still very much 80 during the day, which I mean, I love the heat, so I'm about it, but
I do too. I was in a podcast this morning with Ash Spokes up in Cleveland, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's 32 degrees in the morning," and I was like,
pass. That's freezing, but yeah, pretty much.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely." Well, I appreciate your time today, and I'd love to kind of like walk us through, and even myself, if you don't mind, kind of like the sing-song dance of you competed, you were reversing, you got injured, and kind of like the whole like physical manifestation of what happened, but then also like going into also how you felt, and then kind of going into the topic of today.
Okay. Yeah, totally. So, I competed twice this year. I did two shows. So I did a show. Oh my gosh, now I forget the date of the first one, but like July 20th, I think. And then, yeah, I think that's right. And then August 3rd was my second show, last show of the season. So after that show, being the planner bodybuilder I am, immediately, got on the phone with coach, like, let's talk game plan. And I was actually ready early for both my shows as far as like my physique. So we had been reversing into those shows. And with that, we had pulled out cardio completely. So it was just a step count goal for like a month, essentially. And I was missing my morning cardio. So I requested to have cardio back in the plan. And coach, agreed, obviously, like adjusted, nutrition to support that. And I kind of took it upon myself to have a couple of those cardio sessions be running.
Okay.
And I eased back into it. I have a background as a runner. So like that's like was my kind of thing before bodybuilding. And I just kind of had the itch and just, I mean, super convenient cardio modality, right? To just be able to like lace up your shoes and go for a run. And even with that, I started with treadmill running and, just walk runs, like ease back into it again. So I thought. And my last run, and then I got new shoes, all of that, got my support again, thought I was doing it the smart way. And I had one weekend where I think I just did a little too much. And that was late August or mid August. Yeah, it was like mid August. I remember my last run and I started the run. My knees felt a little achy, but like kind of ran through it. No big deal. And then after the run, I had a little bit of just, again, like kind of like knees felt like a little like achy, a little off. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to, just walk home and I'll take the rest of the week off running. Like, no big deal. I'm being smart. I'm not, pushing past bad pain. Mm-hmm. Well, sure as shit, that kind of escalated. And it actually was interesting. It started with that initial like knee discomfort, and then it kind of turned into, again, that was my last run. It turned into what felt like plantar like fasciitis, which then kind of progressed to just a like, again, like I feel like I do have a higher pain tolerance, so it's hard to say, like hard to gauge the pain, but like there was definitely like a level of discomfort in my heel specifically and some swelling. So that was like about 2 weeks essentially, and I actually started back with a trainer in person who I've worked with previously with some mobility kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I had reached out to him to help me with kind of sorting my body out post prep. Because, we know with prep, like, I think a lot of what set me up, I mean, there's so many factors that we can get into, but one of it is posing is hard on your body, and so like a lot
Word.
of like just mobility things, a lot of just repetitive movement patterns from bodybuilding, plus posing, plus just the everything that prep does to you,
Yes.
physically, kind of set me up for this. So I started with him to kind of untwist me
Yeah.
essentially. And yeah, so I'm kind of jumping around, but started working with him, got a little mobility program going, and the pain, it kind of turned into like a dull discomfort,
Yeah.
but there was swelling, and then the pain again, I'm using the term pain loosely, but it started to be very isolated to where if I pinched my like heel, it started to just be it was like an isolated spot.
Mm.
And I was like, I know enough. I'm not, this is not my wheelhouse, but I know enough that this potentially could be a stress fracture. So I didn't want to wait around to go get an MRI. So I actually paid out of pocket to get an MRI done. And that was like the last day that I had any type of discomfort in that heel. And I was like, oh, I'm being a total hypochondriac. We'll get this MRI result
Yeah.
back. It'll be in the clear. I told Mark, like, I'll be back to, training. Um, and got a call, you have a stress fracture. So that was September 5th, essentially, give or take, that I found out I got a stress fracture in my heel, possibly one in my tibia. And so that was where it all kind of started. So
Yeah.
since September 8th, 10th, something like that. That was about a month post show. I started this whole rehab program, step back from bodybuilding, style training, and here we are on October 20 something.
Practically November. So
Yeah.
that's a lot. So obviously, like you paid your dues and did a 5-year off season to heal hormones, get your cycle back. I think you also like flirted a little bit with like osteopenia. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that was my back. Yeah, I was diagnosed with that when I was 19.
Mhm.
So that's been in my history, and reversed it, in, the years lifting and, working on my hormonal health.
So you went through like kind of like all of that, and then you compete after, like I said, paying your dues for 5 years. Did two
Hmm.
shows, did well with those shows. You are like, with the fire is lit post show. Like I want to go into this off season. Like I want to hit the ground running, and then boom, stress fracture.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind, and like how did you essentially like work to get through it? Because the only way out was through at that point.
Right. Yeah. That Monday was a stressful Monday, I'll tell you what.
Well, happy Husky
um,
Monday.
yeah, yeah. And then, just all life stuff on top of that. But anyway, yeah, I, had my pity party for sure. Like, should have known better. Like, had the beat myself up moments of
Yeah.
like, come on, Sarah. Like, stepping back, like, perfect storm, like of just low energy availability. Sure, we reversed into my shows. You're still dick skin shredded. Like, all of the things, had my moment. And then from there, it was kind of immediately just talking to my team of like, okay, what can we do?
Yep.
Very lucky, I feel, just, us being in this space. I know a lot of people that do know more than me, in this realm.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of several conversations, several meetings of what can we do to, heal this thing and come back, better, and use this time where we do need to deload from training to essentially kind of just be a more well-rounded athlete in general, whether it's bodybuilding or anything else I want to pursue. And when I am ready and able to go back to that bodybuilding style training, even set myself up better to be in a position to like grow muscle more effectively, because again, I work on some of these underlying, patterns, compensation patterns that have developed over time. I know you talk a lot about mobility and whatnot. Yeah. So, I mean, like, we're same page there, because if you're loading a joint, not a muscle, how are you going to grow that muscle? Right. So, like, a lot of it was like, I understood that, hey, part of why I developed this stress fracture is because of hips positioning, the way my tibia is tracking over my foot, the way my foot hits the ground. Well, all of that impacts your ability to load that muscle when you're training as well.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, just kind of a lot of thought about like that pull back to push ahead
Hmm.
um was kind of the mentality.
Absolutely. So I would love to hear kind of like your thoughts on how you were able to go from like the pity party to I'm going to make the most of this, because a lot of athletes, when they get injured or they get sick, even if it's just like a temporary sickness,
Hmm.
like they're out of the gym for a week, for crying out loud, with a cold or COVID or whatever, they like spiral. They're like, oh my God, all of my gains are gone. Like I've lost a week. Like I'm so behind. Like we know as coaches, it's not that big of a deal because we can see the big picture. But when we ourselves are kind of like in the shit, like that week can feel forever. But in your case, it's been like, several weeks going on to like several months. So kind of what's been maybe like a mantra or a grounding moment that you've reminded yourself throughout this process that keeps you going?
Honestly, I have a list because it's not easy. Like,
Yeah.
especially like now that I'm further away from it and feeling good,
Hmm.
it's not easy. But I come back to the logic. That always helps me. I know enough, and I, even went back through my grad school papers about like, what does it really take to lose muscle? I mean, you have to be immobilized for several weeks, to actually lose muscle tissue. And I'm still doing stuff. So for me, it's like a lot of like, okay, let's come back to the facts, here in this situation. Will you look a little softer? Will you be a little flatter? Yeah. And that's part of it. And it is what it is. And I think for me, just a lot of like just pivoting back to what can I do and really honing in on all of that. And even if it's slow, even if it's boring, I rather do that than nothing. And that's what, really kind of helps, keep me going, is like, what can I focus on here? And what's the new challenge? What's, the next thing that I can, pursue? Because that's just the way my brain works. Like, clearly don't like being still. So what can I do that, isn't going to hurt me, but is going to help me and help me move forward?
You touched on something that I absolutely wanted to touch on. Obviously, reversing is difficult enough for some athletes because they see the lines fade, they see the body fat come back on. Maybe their hunger is like still kind of dysregulated, where like they eat a meal and they're like, it's time for the next
Yeah.
meal. How did you get through that time period where it's like your entire world was flipped upside down with bodybuilding style training, doing your cardio, doing your steps, to hey, your foot's broken but you still need to reverse, you still need to heal? Like how did you kind of handle that? Like what are some things that maybe you focused on in addition to
Yep.
logic, because some people don't have that level of
Right.
self-awareness?
Oh, well, and again, I'm self-aware to a fault. So it was very hard. And that
Mhm.
was a lot of my spiral. And again, my background, my history is anorexia, eating disorder.
Yeah.
So you bet your butt I had that voice in my head.
Yeah.
And like I have no problem saying that, it was there, that voice
Mhm.
of like, this is a great time to restrict. So I had to come back to, how are you going to heal yourself if you're robbing yourself of nutrients? Because now not only are we needing to recover hormonally post show, you want to
Mhm.
keep doing something. And it takes calories, it takes energy, it takes micronutrients to heal a freaking bone. So I really had to come back to that. And I had to really just come back to like, what is most important here? Like maintaining lines for what? Or moving like an athlete, getting back to, what, you want to do. And it wasn't easy. I mean, I had to, call myself out to my coach and just, tell, people close to me that like these thoughts are there, like for sure. And the only way that I'm going to get ahead of them is I need you to hold me accountable
Mhm.
to the goals that I say I have for myself, you know? And for me, it's like, you know, I'm very far past that, but it definitely took me like just getting it out of my head to just, hey, like I know I'm being irrational here, but I still gotta get this shit out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it's one thing to be self-aware, but it's another thing to be isolated with your thoughts. And it's like you and I both know, like, when we're being crazy,
Yeah.
like we know that, like, when we're spiraling, we know, like, we see ourselves spiraling. But because we are ourselves and we are emotionally connected to our thoughts and our feelings, it can be really hard to take a time out, to take a pause, and to pull ourselves out of it. Which is why it is so important to have like such a strong sense of community and people helping you through this journey. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about like the support system that you had and how it helped you, not hindered you.
Yeah. I'm gonna, there was like probably like a small handful of people. And that, I feel like
Mhm.
that's the other thing too, is like, yes, I talk about it, but like the people that I'm really relying on and the people that I'm, you know, trusting, because you can get into a situation, especially with like an injury, where you get like too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, like I said, I had Sean, who's, you know, the in-person trainer. I was already kind of working with him. So he was somebody that I really, you know, leaned into, you know, for support, and was like, hey, I'm going to trust you here. That's a big piece of it. I'm going to trust you and this programming, and we're going to collaborate, you know, with it, but I'm going to trust you and trust this process. You know, Mark, you know, my coach, like, again, like just being honest, transparent with him, not only about like where my head was at, but also like transparent with like what I needed, you know, from him. And I mean, he's been amazing. And yeah, like just a small kind of group of like, you know, close friends that I would be like, hey, these are the thoughts. I don't need you to do anything about it, but just, you know, the two or three people that I trusted to kind of hold space for those thoughts.
I think that's so important to just be willing to be vulnerable with people, especially because like, it's something that I talk with my clients is wearing multiple hats. As coaches, we wear multiple hats. Like in your case, like yes, you're an athlete, you're also a coach, you're also a wife, you're also a friend. And so it's like being able to admit when you're struggling to the people that you know actually give a damn about you, and not like the not gonna lie trolls that want to know how much you weigh, which I know we had that like fun little
Dude,
talk.
that was like the top. Like I stopped doing the NGL because I'm
Me
like,
too.
you need better questions. Like I'm sorry, like I'm not here for the drama. There's no drama.
Dude, legit. For what people, if they're watching the replay, what someone asked, like, I don't know how much Sarah weighed or how much some bullshit post show weight gain or something like that. And all I said to her, I was like, if I'm not sitting on your face, my weight is none of your damn business. And
It was just the best answer. Like that's it. That's
like,
all.
mind your business. Mind your business. No,
Yeah.
I think it's great that you have such a good support network. Because obviously, post show, like you are so vulnerable. You are so vulnerable. Your body's vulnerable. Your heart's vulnerable. Your soul's vulnerable. Like you're just kind of left on empty, and you're left also on this euphoric high. And it is so easy to get lost in your emotions and to lose logic when it comes to like steps forward. And then to make matters even more challenging, you get injured, which disrupts literally your entire life. I think you really navigated it well, especially given your background and your history, because anyone that's battled with anorexia um, just knows that those demonic voices are just so fucking loud, and they're the loudest when your voice, your observational self, is the quietest. So I think it speaks very highly to you being able to handle it so well. Not that you handled it perfectly, because I'm sure there are days where you're like, listen, but you're still here, and you're also highlighting like as a bodybuilder, moving your body in different ways. And so, kind of to spin the topic a little bit elsewhere, how has your training changed, and like how are you enjoying it?
Yeah. So training right now, it's a lot of using training, using load
Mhm.
to kind of drive new positions and mobility. Because I think a lot of people like hear mobility and they think like thoracic
Yeah,
rotation,
like
like, you know, like cat cow, like, oh, I'm doing my mobility. And like I, I'm so grateful for Sean because he's really helped me like really like have this sink in for myself. But no, like it's about a lot of breath work, a lot of like, you know, relaxing into these positions and not forcing. And a lot of like, again, like using like lifting, to kind of, again, like drive like these new positions. So for me, like it's a lot of like, I mean, the load is scaled, but it's a lot of like wider stance, sumo stance kind of things. A lot of, again, like I'm not the expert, but essentially like opening up space, like in certain areas where I, hold tension, and then kind of like untwisting in other areas. So it looks very freaking bizarre. Like the first week that I did it, I mean, there's some crawling on the ground, there's some rolling, like
Mhm.
there's some different stuff. Like, I mean, I'm the bodybuilder doing stuff with the TRX. Like, it at first it was like, okay, like identity kind of stuff. And then it's like, what do I care? Like, like I'm doing my thing, and like no one is watching you at the gym, I promise. But yeah, so a lot of just like kind of treating it like I would treat a normal program, like tracking, progressions and whatnot has been big. Um, Swimming is something I've really been leaning into as far as like cardio, and just, I mean, honestly, like that for me is a lot of just like the joy of like movement, and like being a total beginner at something, and like not a total beginner, but a beginner of enough that like there's no real expectations.
Yeah.
And it gives me that satisfaction that running was giving me, as far as like that flow state,
Yeah.
like that just turn off your brain, especially with swimming, because I mean, there's no music. Like it's just you in the water. And that's been super, super, super helpful for me.
I love that. Then kind of tying back into, what's like life going to look like for you after you kind of get the clean bill of health, like tibia's all good, like foot's all good, like what things do you want to take away from this experience regarding maybe your thought process or how you move your body, and what things are you looking forward to having back in your life that you had to remove?
Yeah, I'm so excited to deadlift and squat, honestly. But and I'm almost there, but not quite. I absolutely, so I didn't mention, like I'm including more like power work, more plyometric kind of stuff, more things to just help me move like a more well-rounded athlete in this programming. And right now it's very like baby level, but I definitely want to keep that in, as far as, my training goes. I mean, one, because I'm enjoying it, and then two, like I just see the benefit to putting your body in different varied positions and moving in different planes. And yeah, so I'm excited for, what that might look like. And I already got, Mark kind of like, ooh, like there's so many ways, and I'm over here like this too, because we're coaches, there's so many ideas as far as like how we can play with this.
Mhm.
Swimming for sure, I want to keep in. I do want to get to a place where I am able to run again. What does that look like? Like we'll see. I mean, me. I'll tell you this. This can be the IG Live exclusive. I had a sprint triathlon kind of like bookmarked as far as like a goal. We'll see. Again, the timeline on that goal might look different now, but yeah. So we'll see.
I love that. And then, really, one final question, just for me, because I'm nosy. Will you ever compete again, or are you kind of like embracing more of this like functional training, where you'll always be a bodybuilder and do the bodybuilding things, but competitively, you just want to take a step back and focus on developing other areas of your life?
I have no idea. I think I will, but I also could see that I wouldn't. Like, am I gonna compete next year? No, because I mean, because of this, and then too, like the glute density. Like, I have the shape, but like for me to compete again, I need to be competitive at that national level.
Yeah.
And I thought I was close to that, and I'm not terribly far off, but I don't want to go and be like, ooh, seventh place or sixth
Yeah.
place. Like, it's got to be like top three, like solid. And my glutes just need to be denser and bigger for that. Um, so yeah, I
I
got
love
some
that.
other bodybuilding goals, if you know what I mean, too, in that kind of timeline. And part of that is getting my hormonal health back to be able to do
Sure.
that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Kind of one final question to tie this all up in a nice little pretty ribbon and bow, but for an athlete that is dealing with an injury or sickness or maybe even their own little setback, what advice would you give them? And what encouragement would you also leave with them?
Oh, you're not any less of an athlete if you have to move differently, temporarily. And there's just so much that the human body is capable of. The body is so resilient, so cool. And if you give it the tools, if you give it the time to do its thing, I think you'll be just really pleasantly surprised. And, I think moving differently too, it's for your mental health as well. Like I think we get so like in a box with training and
Yep.
like rolling on the floor, swimming, like doing this different stuff. It just kind of I think it's important, and it can be fun. And again, there's so many things that you can do no matter what's, going on. And it's fun to be creative that way.
I think that's so important because obviously, as bodybuilders, especially when you are doing it competitively, you have this like almost inflexible mindset where it's very much like these are the boxes I need to hit every single day. Like it's ritualistic in nature where it's like if one variable gets thrown off, you can kind of spiral. And training is one of those things where it's like, don't fucking touch my training. Like, don't mess with it, don't touch it. And even a lot of people take it to the point where they get new training, they get anxious because like now they're having to relearn like different motor patterns, different machines, different exercise order. And like to like the common person, that might be like not a big deal. But for a bodybuilder that is very much like, done, done,
You can
done,
get
done, done.
emotional about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like you absolutely can lose yourself, right? Because like in a lot of ways, if all you identify is the bodybuilder, well, when training gets pulled because you get injured, you can almost have an identity crisis. And I feel like, especially in the newer you are to the sport, and maybe the more emotional dependent you are on you identifying as solely a bodybuilder, the more difficult it is to learn from these setbacks and to actually overcome these setbacks and turn them into comebacks. So I think the way that you handled it is really, really important, which is why I wanted to talk to you on it because in full transparency, although I've had my own injuries and my own setbacks, I definitely did not handle them the way that I ideally would have liked it in terms of like being patient and being graceful. It definitely was more dark and more hateful and resentful
Yeah.
because I blamed myself.
Yeah. Those two words are something I would never describe myself as, but I feel like this just journey in general, like bodybuilding, like, and everything that's come from bodybuilding for me have helped me kind of develop that. But yeah, it's not, I mean, we fall from grace. That's totally normal. It's just about how you pick yourself up.
Right. You fall from grace. Sometimes you just kick it
Mac,
into the ground.
yeah, like, I mean, I'm somebody that tends to have to learn that way, just
No,
for the record.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I wanted to have you on because I know you and I in a lot of ways are similar and we're loyal to a fault. We are ferocious and we don't take no for an answer in a lot of ways. And the self-awareness that we both have is I would say our biggest asset, but also our biggest downfall, depending upon, you
Yeah.
know, how we woke up on the either the right side or the wrong side of the bed. So I think it's really neat and in a lot of ways I've like kind of watched your story like obviously heartbroken when I saw fucking foot injury being so close to like just competing to then seeing you take the mindset of well if I can't move in this way I can still move in other ways rather than just like losing yourself to essentially depression.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's, I mean, abundance mindset, right? You gotta have that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sarah, thank you so very much for your time. Any final thoughts or things you want to leave the people with?
No, I think we kind of said it all. But yeah, I mean, follow. I try to post some of this stuff on my story and whatnot, kind of what I'm doing, and I gotta follow up. Hopefully, follow up MRI here, and appointment with an orthopedic to kind of see where I'm at in a couple weeks. So I'm itching. So I'm hoping around Thanksgiving time you'll see me doing something that maybe resembles my more normal.
Yeah, I was gonna make a joke and be like the turkey trot, but
Yeah.
probably not. Just
Yeah,
walk the
probably
turkey
not.
trot.
Probably too soon. Probably too soon.
You could
Maybe there's
swim the
like a
turkey
turkey
trot.
swim, like a turkey
A
swim.
turkey swim.
Yeah.
It's
God.
just like thinking about that. Oh
The
my god! But
drowning birds. Yeah,
literally,
yeah.
Did not get pardoned this year, but also I'm really glad that you also stayed safe during the hurricane because I know like I'm a little bit more north of you, but still it was like things
Dude,
are getting
what
dicey.
what a month. Let me tell you. Yeah. Yeah.
Legit. But Sarah, thank you so much for your time this evening. It was so good chatting with you and catching up with you. Guys, make sure you follow Sarah and just follow along with her and watch her do random shit on her stories. Cause like it's stuff that like you would never think that like that's how you can move a body, but like she fucking does it. So I think it's impressive as
And
hell.
don't get that would be my final note. I know we're trying to wrap up here. Don't guess. Like if you're going through an injury, hire somebody to help you as far as that recovery process, with that rehab, that training, whatever it looks like for
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, like get the help and also keep an open mind because like you'd be surprised at what the body can actually recover from. My latest like I didn't realize this could actually heal the body is fucking dry needling and acupuncture. Dog, that shit is like voodoo, but I love it. It's a good type of voodoo.
Yeah, oh, we could have a whole other talk about voodoo. So
Dude,
yeah.
honestly, we probably should because I know that like you and I, like I said, we went from like science to like oh maybe there is application for woo woo stuff, and now we're kind of like woo woo girls where we're like.
Esoteric. We're so Mare and I had a talk. We're starting to refer to it by the right terminology here.
It was so esoteric. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's the
ooh.
correct. Yeah,
I like
the
woo woo
metaphysical.
though.
I do too.
It brings me back to my tequila days when I actually was woo
Yeah.
girl.
Oh, I love it. Okay, cool. We'll schedule that
I
then.
love it. All right, all right. So good meeting with you, Sarah. Guys, thanks so much for your time this evening. Make sure you guys follow Sarah, and if you guys have any questions, just let us know. All right,
Okay,
bye.
thanks, Ash.